As we continue our Crisis in the Classroom coverage, Fox Illinois is turning our attention to the upcoming consolidated general election on April 1st. School boards across the country have come under scrutiny for different policies and decisions, and Unit 4 is no exception. We're working for you to help you learn more about the candidates before you head to the polls. Joining me is Grace Kang, one of the 11 school board candidates for Unit 4. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
Okay, so we'll start off with the first question. What inspired you to run for the school board, and what key issues do you plan to prioritize if elected?
Yeah, good questions. So I am an educator by trade. I have taught elementary and middle school for about 10 years, and I now currently am an associate professor at a local university in the College of Education. And so my whole career has been in the field of education. I also have 4 children, and they all attend Unit 4 in the elementary, middle, and high school. So I have a lot of experience with education as well as with Unit 4 itself. And what caused me to run, I would say it's definitely a time where, like you shared, that perhaps some change might be necessary. And so I did figure if I was going to run, this would probably be the time. And so with my background in education, I feel that I could fill a hole and perhaps bring some of that knowledge to the school board.
Okay. How do you plan to improve communication and transparency between the board, parents, teachers, and students?
I think that's really important. I think communication is probably one of the most pivotal roles and tools that we could, as a board, improve on and ensure that we are relaying that to the community. I think first would be to ensure that the communication is in everyday language, in layman's terms, to ensure that all of our community can understand what we're sharing, in particular around data, in particular around initiatives. I think that's really important. Secondly, to improve the promptness of the communication, to ensure that we're giving ample time, and if there is a new initiative, if there is something that we are trying to roll out, that we give a good amount of time for folks to understand, ask questions, because I think it's a partnership. And so if we want to work together as a board, as an administration, as a community, we need to hear the voices of our community as well. And so if we don't put out that time, then that's not going to happen. Also, probably giving opportunities for those questions, for that feedback. So whether it's forms or whether it's surveys, whether it's opportunities to have meet and greets with the community, I think that's also really important. So to hear the voices and representation amongst our community. About transparency, I think, yeah, we try to share what we can share. Obviously, in all boards that I've sat on, there is some information that you're privy to as a board member, but if we can share that information with the public and with the community, I think we should definitely do that.
Okay. Given the recent controversies surrounding the current school board, what specific steps will you take to restore trust and bring stability to the district?
Yeah, I think in order to build trust and rapport, it's really important to be a good listener. And so that's the place I would want to start, is to listen. And so to listen to first, what are the roles and the responsibilities of a board member, because I'm not a board member right now. So if I were to get elected, to ensure that I learn what those roles and that those responsibilities look like, to ensure that I follow proper protocol and processes. And so I would do my due diligence to ensure that I am a good learner and I come prepared to those meetings. I also want to ensure that I'm a good listener. I think a part of the board that is what makes a really strong board is to ensure we have diverse perspectives represented. And so as I go in with a certain perspective, like I shared as an educator, like I shared, I don't know if I've shared this, but as Asian American, as a child of immigrants, all of those things are perspectives that I bring to the table. And I assume every board member is doing the same. They're bringing their perspectives, their lenses, their expertise. And so I can ensure that I listen. I think we all can often have a narrow perspective because we come from our own norms, our own cultural norms that exist and to widen those by listening and by ensuring that I don't come from a defense, but ensuring that I'm coming from a perspective of listening and coming from an assets and strength-based lens versus a deficit one. And so not seeing all the things that aren't being done or all the things that someone's doing wrong, but how can we perhaps see what are the strengths, what are the areas that we can see a lot of good things, and then look at what are some areas that we need to grow in.
Okay. What is one major issue you believe the current board has mishandled, and how would you approach it differently to ensure a better outcome for the community?
I do think it's hard to approach something with the ways that the board has mishandled things. I like to see that the board has strengths, and I think the board has approached the strategic plan and really tried to address some of those issues. I do think the board has also tried to enact some of the supports for test scores to increase, whether that's in reading and math. I guess some areas I would, around those strengths, I would talk through is first around the areas of communication that we talked about earlier, to ensure that when there are new initiatives or plans, perhaps that we can share that information earlier with the community. Perhaps we can also ensure that there's feedback from the community that's provided. I also think that when we share data, if we can share not only quantitative data, but also qualitative data, looking at data that's also not just from test scores, but also perhaps we get feedback from teachers and we get feedback from folks that are in the schools every single day. And so I think there's a lot of strengths. I think within those strengths, there's a lot of areas that we can make better, do better, and improve on. And so I would say areas of communication, I would say ensuring that multiple voices are represented. We're looking to serve our entire school population, and that means students with special needs, that means students coming from marginalized, non-dominant backgrounds, that means students that speak various languages. So really looking at our whole school population and trying to do the best for our entire school community.
Okay. Many school districts are dealing with safety issues for both students and teachers. If elected, what do you plan to do to make sure our schools are safe?
Yeah, I do think safety is always a number one on the list, right? We want our kids and our teachers to be safe in the schools. I do believe the district has made some strides forward, and as there have been certain concerns with gun violence and with school shootings, they have put in metal detectors at the middle schools and the high schools. And so there are steps moving forward, even with SRO officers, just ensuring that all students feel safe with their presence, and perhaps that means they don't wear a uniform, perhaps that means there's some steps that we're ensuring that all students feel safe with them there, but I do also think we want to ensure the safety of our teachers and students and I think SRO officers provide some of that as well. I think those are two ways right now that the district has moved forward with some of that. When I think about the safety of students around mental health and around some of trauma and things that they've faced, I do feel that the district is trying to provide supports for students around that as well.
Okay, and this is my last question for you. If elected, will you continue to support the anti-racism policy the district has put in place?
Yeah, I would continue to support that. I do believe that historically, Black and brown students have faced racism, and that's a historic systemic issue, and I believe that's why we address that as a resolution. I've read some other responses from other candidates saying, well, if we do that for Black and brown students, then we need to do that for other populations of students. My argument to that would be, I believe that the reason why we're addressing Black and brown students in particular is because of the systemic historical inequities and racism that exist in our district as well as in our more so our larger society. And I think you need to be intentional about those decisions.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you for
I
joining
appreciate
me.
it. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to watch more videos from Fox Illinois.